contributions to the country. The 10th best was President John F. Kennedy, an inspiring leader whose key foreign policy accomplishment was confronting the spread of communism in Southeast Asia, Europe, and most notably, Latin America, by forcing the Soviet Union to remove their nuclear weapons from Cuba during the tense 13-day missile crisis in 1962. At home, he promoted the ambitious New Frontier domestic program, promising federal funding for education and aid programs for rural America. This also included pushing for Medicare, which today is one of the most popular government programs, providing health care for America's seniors. It was passed by Congress and signed into law 3 years after JFK was assassinated in Dallas, ending his presidency after just 3 years in office. Although James Polk died from cholera 3 months after he left office after serving only 1 term, he got a lot done. He believed in manifest destiny, that American settlers were destined to move westward, and negotiated possession of the Oregon Territory from the British and purchased New Mexico and California from Mexico after defeating them in the Mexican-American War. He restored an independent treasury and was able to enact much of the Democratic policy agenda. Lyndon Johnson grabs the 8th spot on this list for being the last president to pass a massive domestic policy agenda that favored the people. As president, LBJ was responsible for signing the Civil and Voting Rights Acts, declaring a war on poverty, implementing gun control, setting up public broadcasting, enacting Medicare and Medicaid, appointing Thurgood Marshall as the first African-American justice on the Supreme Court, signing an education bill that significantly improved funding to schools, establishing the National Endowments for the Humanities and Arts, protecting 9.1 million acres of federal land, signing, developing, and enforcing the Clean Air Act, and passing comprehensive immigration reform for non-Europeans. Unfortunately, Johnson's standing takes a hit over the Vietnam War, in which he dramatically escalated American involvement from 16,000 to 550,000 combat troops. He did not seek a second term. Under President Dwight Eisenhower, the United States became the world's richest country, and our final 2 states, Alaska and Hawaii, were admitted to the Union. At home, Eisenhower launched the Interstate Highway System, created NASA, along with the Defense Research Projects Agency, which has developed a slew of important technologies, and established strong science education. He was a solid supporter of civil rights and signed the first major civil rights legislation in over 75 years, since 1875. Abroad, Eisenhower used nuclear threats to conclude the Korean War with China and prioritized inexpensive nuclear weapons and a reduction of conventional military forces as a strategy for keeping pressure on the Soviet Union and reducing the federal deficit. Number 6 is Woodrow Wilson, who led America into World War I, the decisive moment that turned the conflict in the Allies' favor. After commanding the Allied victory, he sponsored the League of Nations, an early version of the UN. Unfortunately, the US Senate voted not to join the League, a consequential moment that definitely made the body weaker than it should have been, and was partially the reason why the Nazi Party was able to rise to power in Germany. 5th is Thomas Jefferson, the founding father who wrote the first draft of the Declaration of Independence. He became America's 3rd president in 1801, after serving as Adams' vice president and the first U.S. Secretary of State under George Washington. He brilliantly doubled the size of the United States by reaching a deal with Napoleon to purchase the Louisiana Territory from France for just $15 million. This area encompassed what eventually became all or part of 15 different states. Though he signed a bill in 1807 banning slave importation into the country, his legacy has been tainted by the fact that he himself owned slaves. 42-year-old Vice President Theodore Roosevelt, taking over after William McKinley was assassinated, was the youngest man to become president. A true progressive, he was the first president to call for environmental conservation and greatly expanded the national park system. His Square Deal also focused on an expansion of